we're studying the Vedas and we're studying the Bhagavad Gita, the Puranas. If we study this on this particular day or embark into any journey on this particular day, then you will always have the positive education follow you throughout your lifetime and beyond. And that's why I told you this is a special edition of this particular class of Vedic wisdom for the Akshay Tritiya. And why not? It is from the Vedas, so we must celebrate it in a positive manner. I also mentioned about the Dan Punya. I just thought I'll share it with the group, and hence I shared it with everybody. And whatever you contribute on this day, well, we have till the midnight tithi, so before the sankalp is taken. That too, the sankalp taken on this day, however, if you've not performed it, but it counts towards for this day. And the other thing is the Godan. There is a huge significance for Godan in the Hindu Dharma Shastras. I will go in depth into that a bit later, not right now, because it will come in one of the Upanishads as well. So whoever has pledged the amount, I just want to say that you're sharing in the good, the good deed, and it will multiply with the grace of God. And it, it's not about, I'm not trying to, start a charity or anything, but it was for your benefit, truly. Anyway, on the account of Lord Vishnu, Jai Shri Krishna. Lakshmi Narayan is the manifestation of Lord Vishnu, in which Lord Vishnu is worshipped along with his consort Devi Lakshmi. Devotees of Lord Vishnu also observe a day-long fast on this day, Akshay Tritiya. As per Vratraj, on the day of Akshay Tritiya, Lord Vishnu, along with Goddess Lakshmi, should be worshipped ritualistically with all necessary puja steps, including the flowers, the dhup, and the various ornaments. A proper puja done on this day also is highly auspicious. They do this puja in all the temples in India, and lots of people do it at home as well. The seva and the puja kram, they're all different. However, the significance of the puja is so great on this particular day. It applies to all the households that perform the seva as well. There's also a very special significance in Vedic astrology, as it is believed that the day doesn't need any muhurat to start any auspicious work today. All the muhurats are perfect. All the chogariyas, there's no one particular one. There is, but in general, all of them are auspicious. So there's no boundaries to what time you can perform the auspicious work. Many marriages, housewarming ceremony, purchasing of clothes, jewelry, etc., bikes are performed on this day. As per Hindu timekeeping, the time has been divided into the 4 yugas. As we discussed last time, the yugas are cyclic, and they're known as Satyug, Treta Yug, Dwapar Yug, and Kal Yug, respectively. Akshay Tritiya is the day when Satyug, that is the golden period of human life, got over, and Treta Yug got started. Hence, the origin of Akshay is deep-rooted in Hinduism. The word Akshay means never diminishing, and that resonates with all your actions that you perform on this day. whatever you do, buying wealth, giving away wealth, doing pujas, studying the Veds, this will always carry on within yourselves, and uplift your um, spiritual path. Jap, yagna, pitru tarpan, dan punya, swadhyay, and any pujas remain forever with the person. To take the maximum benefit of the day, many Hindus take bath in the sacred rivers as well. But with the lockdown, I think everybody's mainly at home, apart from people living on the rivers. By the way, the rivers, I'm sure you've all seen the pictures. They've all been cleansed away now. People have spent millions trying to clean the rivers, and with this lockdown, Mother Nature's call, all the rivers are now flowing clean. Some of them are completely transparent. Gangaji, you can actually drink that water, and same with Yamuna River, but it applies to Saryu Nadi and Saraswati, Godavari. Whole of them are completely cleansed. Everybody has reported that to the government. Obviously, it's the men pollution that pervaded. But yeah, so it's unfortunate nobody can perform that. Today, you can also perform tarpan with water and sesame seeds to your pitrus, the beloved departed souls. Also, performing yagnas gives maximum benefits on this day. And it also coincides with the birth anniversary of Lord Parshuram, and is known as Parshuram Jayanti as well. It begins in the beginning tithi of Akshay Tritiya. I'm sure you're aware of Parshuram avatar, all of you, from Ramayana. Yeah, he's this Akshay Tritiya, it applies to him. He's one of the persons still living to date, out of the 7 people who are, who got what should I say? Chiranjeevi. Yeah. Sorry.
I read somewhere that this is the only avatar of Vishnu Bhagwan, where 2 avatars of Vishnu Bhagwan met in Ramayana, like Parshuram and Ram Bhagwan himself.
Yeah.
Are two swarups of, or rather incarnation of Vishnu Bhagwan. And they met at the same time.
Right.
In Ramayana.
Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. But the energy of Parshuramji, I don't know if you're aware, dissipated when he came towards, when he met Sri Ramchandraji, and when Sri Ramchandraji lifted the bow and pulled it, that's the time, by pulling, the action of pulling the bow, right? He took away the complete energy of Parshuramji. Yeah.
Oh.
So his incarnation, then he's still there. However, he's not got all the attributes that that incarnation had when he took birth for the particular purpose.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So he is still residing in the Kailash or some place. I read, waiting for the next incarnation of Vishnu, the Kalki.
Kalki avatar. Yeah.
Yeah. Kalki avatar.
Yeah, I think, you know, this it's not only waiting, of course, waiting. All the 7 people who've been granted eternal lifespans. Yes, that's the word, eternal lifespans. They're all existing. And yes, they will all get to have darshan of the Kalki avatar, without a doubt. However, it's only until dissolution of the whole earth and the universe that they will go. They will be, even after the avatar has gone, Kalki avatar is gone, they will still be here until the end of the, you know, the universe, literally. So, yes, that's the way it is.
What's the reason of having those avatars, you know, eternal lifetime for those beings?
Well, the reason for that is, I mean, they've been granted that to actually help the mankind in one way or another. They're not just there roaming around aimlessly and all that. They do help mankind. And Hanumanji is one of them as well. And many people have, you know, had sights of him, you know, in certain places. So they do, you know, perform helpful tasks for, you know, provided by the Supreme Lord. Yeah. Okay. And today, the you know, we discussed this Shabda Brahma Ativartate. Yeah. Meaning the words that resonance go beyond. That applies today, on this day. You know, the prayers that we said, they will always resonate with us, always, with all of us right now. Yeah. Okay, right, homework. Where do we start? Who is starting? Okay. Kena Upanishad. Ordinarily, we know 3 states of consciousness only: waking, dreaming, sleeping. There you are. There is, however, a 4th state, the superconscious, which transcends this. In the first 3 states, the mind is not clear enough to save us from error. But in the 4th state, it gains such purity of vision that it can perceive the divine. If God could be known by the limited mind and senses, then God knowledge would be like any other knowledge, and spiritual science like any physical science. He can be known, however, by the purified mind only. Therefore, to know God, one must purify himself. The mind described in the Upanishads is the superconscious mind. According to the Vedic sages, the mind in its ordinary state is only another sense organ. This mind is limited as a sense organ, but when it becomes illumined by the light of the cosmic intelligence, or it's also known as the mind of the mind in the Upanishads, then it is able to apprehend the first cause, or that which stands behind all external activities. We are in the second part of the Kena Upanishad, first section, and the shlok is directly referenced as, "If thou thinkest, I know it well, then it is certain that thou knowest but little of Brahman, which is the absolute truth, or in what form he resides in the devs, minor aspect of the deity. Therefore, I think that thou thinkest to be known is still to be sought after. It's a bit it's a bit complex here. It sounds complex because this is a direct translation of the shlok. However, given the definition of the real self, sorry, beg your pardon. Sorry about that. Given the definition of the real self or Brahman, that is the super soul, by which mortals are able to see, hear, feel, and think. The teacher was afraid that the disciple, after merely hearing about it, might conclude that he knew it. So he said to him, this is the conversation. You know, we talked about the Upanishad as the, you know, the teacher teaching the student, you know, sitting close by. So that's how they've stated it. You have heard about it, but that is not enough. You must experience it. Mere intellectual recognition will not give you the true knowledge of it. Neither can it be taught to you. The teacher can only show the way. You must find it yourself. It's like any other education we take. The teacher can teach us. However, practically, we got to find our way. Example is yoga. We go for yoga classes. They can only teach us. However, to reach that particular stage or particular point of pranayama or any yogas, you have to do it yourself and experience it. You know, they say the Brahmari pranayama opens up, you know, the sacral chakra. Not the sacral, sorry, the head chakra and the third eye. But in order to get to that, that's only the knowledge. You have to practice the yoga in order to try and experience it. And I'm sure I personally have experienced that to a certain degree. Not completely, I'm not quite there, but you know, I do believe that you have to work on it yourself. Knowledge means union between subject and object. To gain this union, one must practice. Theory cannot help us. The previous chapter has also shown us the knowledge of Brahman is beyond the sense perception. There, the eye does not go, nor the speech, nor the mind. Basically, that's the level of the knowledge. That is distinct from known, and also it is beyond the unknown. Therefore, it was necessary for the teacher to remind the disciple that the knowledge based on sense perception or intellectual apprehension should be not confounded with supersensuous knowledge. You know, everything that we don't see, basically, what we can't imagine, we can't say it doesn't exist. Till now, the science did not even acknowledge all the navgrahas, and they've been there since beginning of time for us. Even our shastras say that astrology begins with the 9 grahas. However, science is just discovering them. NASA, for example, you know, NASA and also ISRO in India, they're probing into, you know, the planet Mars, Mangal. The best part is the Dharma Shastras give all the description of the planet. What they're discovering, it's already in the Dharma Shastras, our, you know, scriptures. But Knowledge is one thing, and the application is another thing. So I did think about this when I was first studying astrology, and I knew that the moon, the moon, they will discover the moon, but if they wanted any place to go and live in, that would be Mangal, because of the nature of Mangal as described by the Vedic astrology. So that's how it actually works. But until, just a couple of years ago, they decided to probe into Mars. So, this is how it works. The mind can, perceive as per knowledge, but obviously what they're going to find there, it will be, I'm certain that, what the Dharma Shastras say is correct, and it will be based on that. However, as the Upanishad says, it is for one to experience. Yeah. The disciple had listened to the teacher with unquestioning mind and was intellectually convinced of the truth of his words. It was now necessary for him to prove by his own experience what he had heard. Guided by the teacher, he sought within himself through meditation the meaning of Brahman, and having gained a new vision, he approached the teacher one more. Part 2. The disciple said, I do not think I know it well, nor do I think that I do not know it. He among us who knows it truly knows what is meant by I know, and also what is meant by I know it not. Is basically perception of the mind. You may think you know something. However, it's until you experience it with the senses, the consciousness, only then can the intellect, say that, yes, I know it. This is talking about the eternal knowledge that's being parted by the receiver. This appears to be contradictory, but it is not. In the previous chapter, we learned that Brahman is distinct from the known and beyond the unknown. The disciple, realizing this, says, so far as mortal conception is concerned, I do not think I know, because I understand that it is beyond mind and speech. Yet, from the higher point of view, I cannot say that I do not know, for the very fact that I exist, that I can seek it, shows that I know, for it is the source of my being. I do not know, however, in the sense of knowing the whole infinite ocean of existence. The word knowledge is used ordinarily to signify acquaintance with phenomenon only. But man must transcend this relative knowledge before he can have a clear conception of God. One who wishes to attain soul consciousness must rise above the matter. The observation of material science, being confined to the sense plane, it ignores what is beyond. Therefore, it must always be limited and subject to the change. One of the examples I can give in this context is the soul, the Atma. In the medical science, they do not talk about the soul. They do not discuss the soul in theory or even in practical, because it is unseen and unknown to the medical science. Everything is based on materialistic observation and sense plane. So it ignores what is beyond. However, the Dharma Shastras and the Upanishads, the Upanishads and the Puranas, all of them tell us about the soul, the Atma, Paramatma. Therefore, it must always be limited and subject to change. Medical science discovered atoms. Then it went further and discovered electrons. And when it had found the one, it had to drop the other. So this kind of knowledge can never lead to the ultimate knowledge of the infinite, because it is exclusive and not inclusive. Medical science only acknowledges what they find in experiments practically. However, if they see something better, the theory changes, then they drop the first idea. So it's not exclusive, and it should not be inclusive in the spiritual science. Spiritual science is not merely a question of the mind and the brain. It depends on the awakening of our latent higher consciousness. And I think I'm going to pause here and let you think about this. Just bear with me. Okay. Hello? Yes? Okay. Yoga. Here we go. Arjun Uvacha. Jaya Sita Karmanasya Janardana Tat Kim Gorimam Arjun said, O Janardana, O Keshav, why do you want to engage me in this ghastly warfare if you think that intelligence is better than the fruity work? The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, has very elaborately described the constitution of the soul in the previous chapter, with a view to delivering his intimate friend Arjun from the ocean of material grief. And the path of realization has been recommended, Buddhi Yoga or Krishna consciousness. Sometimes Krishna consciousness is misunderstood to be inertia, and one with such misunderstanding can often withdraw to a secluded place to become fully Krishna consciousness by chanting the Lord's name. Okay. Text 2. That was Buddhim
Ekam vada nischitya Shreyo Apnyam.
My intelligence is bewildered by your equivocal instructions. Therefore, please tell me decisively which will be most beneficial for me. Arjuna has still not got over his aversion towards the war, and he still believes, he's not convinced that he should fight the war. He's still too attached, emotionally attached to all the relatives and the gurus, etc. And obviously, he's also thinking about the disaster the war would bring to mankind. Okay, text 3. Sri Bhagwan Vacha
Loke Dvidhan
Dvidha Nishtam
Prokta
Prokta Mayan Yagya
Yogena
Yogen
Sankhyanam
Karma
Yogen Yoginam.
Yoginam.
Yeah. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, O sinless Arjun, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. Some are inclined to understand it by empirical, philosophical speculation, and others by devotional service. Text 4. Na karmana manarambham naishikarmaya
So
purusho
Naka Sanya
nam eva siddhim
Samadhi
samagati. Not by merely abstaining from work can one achieve freedom from the reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. Now, what we talked about earlier, it's come into forefront on this shlok. It's talking about not merely by abstaining from work. So, if you have those fears regarding work, by whatever form of work you're doing, and if you think that if you stop working, it will disappear, whatever the fears are, then it doesn't work like that. So you can't run away. You have to do your karma. Arjun is happy to just avert his work as a warrior. He has, as a Kshatriya, he has to perform what is set out to do. So, Jay? Jay? I don't know. Jay, mute yourself if you got other things going on. Because
No, there's nothing, Kim.
She's just making herself comfortable.
Okay. Oh, okay. As long as she doesn't run away, as we know from this shlok. Okay. From work can one achieve
I need to wear
freedom
my
from
glasses.
reaction. Please. I need to mute this girl for a while. Unmute when you're settled. From work can one achieve freedom from reaction, nor by renunciation alone can one attain perfection. I'll give you an example. There was a time, this is my own example, there was a time when at a certain stage in my life, I thought, okay, I just want to go away. I want to give up everything. I want to go away and live in an ashram. And it was a very, very solid thought. Trust me, I was ready to dive into it completely and give everything up. Obviously, the Almighty's plans had something else for me in mind. But I was trying to avert a few things, and I thought it would help. But, it's easily done. You might feel that you can go into renunciation, give up everything, and, then you don't have to fall in the game of karma and its, attributes that follow the repercussions. But it doesn't work like that. We have to do our karma, whatever we meant to, and still deal with the situation. And Arjun here is obviously trying to do the same, if he could get away with it. But in a way, he's a good soul. So his thought process is pretty positive. But in this situation, he doesn't want to face it. Okay. Text 5. Nahi kashit shanam api jatu tishtate akarma krita karyate niya apashna karma sarva prakriti jai gune. Everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the qualities he has acquired from the modes of material nature. Therefore, no one can refrain from doing something, not even for a moment. So, basically, anyone or any animate, any animate objects or people, I would say, we all have a purpose in life, and none of us can just decide that, we don't want to do our karma. It's the nature of the soul to be always active. And as the purport says, without the presence of the spirit soul, the material body cannot move. The body is only a dead vehicle to be worked by the spirit soul, which is always active and cannot stop even for a moment. Even when we are sleeping, we are performing a karma. So nobody can be without any karma, nobody or nothing. The trees, they're ever evolving in all the seasons, the example given by Mena here. So the animals, the flowers, the rivers, the seasons, everybody, everything has a role to play in the universe. As such, the spirit soul has to be engaged in the good work of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it will be engaged in occupations dictated by illusionary energy. In contact with material energy, the spirit soul acquires material modes. And to purify the soul from such affinities, it is necessary to engage in the prescribed duties enjoined in the Shastras. But if the soul is engaged in his natural functions of Krishna consciousness, whatever he is able to do is good for him. The Srimad Bhagavad on this shlok advises as such. If someone takes to Krishna consciousness, basically bhakti marg, path of devotion, even though he may not follow the prescribed duties in the Shastras or execute the devotional service properly, and even though he may fall down from the standard, there is no loss or evil for him. But if he carries out all the injunctions for purifications in the Shastras, what does it all avail him if he is not Krishna conscious? So the purificatory process is necessary for reaching the point of Krishna consciousness. Therefore, sannyas or any such process is to help reach the ultimate goal of becoming Krishna conscious, without which everything is considered a failure. Well, there is a slight contrast here between the the shlok text 5, and I would like all of you to take this as homework, text 5 of this chapter, and contemplate on it, and even think about what Srimad Bhagavad has said. I do not quite agree with what they have prescribed as dictated by Srimad Bhagavad. So I will leave it at that. And I would like all of you to contemplate and, you know, think about it, because it's quite important. Yeah. So text 5, chapter 3. Move on to text 6 now. Riyani Samya
Manasa
Indriya
Indriyaten Vimudyam Karacha Yukayat.
It's Uchyate. One who restrains the senses of action, but whose mind dwells on the sense objects, certainly deludes himself and is called a pretender. There are okay. Just bear with. Right. There are many pretenders who refuse to work in Krishna consciousness but make a show of meditation while actually dwelling within the mind upon the sense enjoyments. Such, okay. He's talking about, it's not only about Krishna consciousness, it's talking about people who perform certain actions which portray that the mind is totally controlled, and they're basically, we're talking about the hypocrites here. They pretend to be somebody else, and yet within they're not what they pretend to do. So we're talking about lots of religious people. We can even talk about, actually, hang on, we can talk about the perfect example right now is Islam, what they teach. They pretend they are actually houses of religion, and yet they're actually, got their
cult.
Yeah. Okay, we got you in. But yeah, that's a perfect example. And yes, they're building suicide bombers in the house of God, right? Or, yeah. So it's basically pretending to be in control and performing your duty towards the Almighty, and yet, you know, doing other bits. Text 7. Yes, twa indriyani
manasa
niyamya
Arjuna
karmendriyo
Karma Yogam
asakta
Asakta Visisyate.
On the other hand, if a sincere person tries to control the active senses by the mind and begins karma yoga in Krishna consciousness without attachment, he is by far superior. Now, we talked about this, and I think Smita Bhabi mentioned about, the diversion from the attachment in the family and diverting it towards Krishna consciousness and taking them on board that journey. This slok actually is talking about that. And instead of becoming a pseudo-transcendentalist for the sake of wanton living and sense enjoyment, it is far better to remain in one's own business and execute the purpose of life, which is to get free from material bondage and enter into the kingdom of God. The prime Swarg Gati, or goal of self-interest, is to reach Vishnu. The whole institution of Varna and Ashram is designed to help us reach this goal of life. A householder can also reach the destination by regulated service in Krishna consciousness. For self-realization, one can live a controlled life as prescribed in the Shastras and continue carrying out his business without attachment. In that way, make progress. A sincere person who follows this method is far better situated than the false pretender who adopts the show bottle spiritualism to cheat the innocent public. A sincere sweeper in the street is far better than the charlatan meditator who meditates only for the sake of making a living. Yes, there are lots of those people in the world anyway, the pretenders. But it's also talking about the guidance of doing your karma and practicing devotional service in your own house, whether you're doing devotional service or whether you're doing pujas at home. It's okay as long as you're doing your other duties, whether it's a business or a job or whatever, and you're not attached to the particular facets in the life. Text 8.
Niyatam kuru karma tvam karma jayo karmana tena prasiddhayet karmana.
Perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. Yes, we do know that if anybody sleeps, for more than 48 hours, the muscles will start disintegrating, and the mind will slowly dysfunction, and all the other senses start to disintegrate gradually. So it's important to, not pretend, but to avoid karma. And one should always do karma, whatever their karma is. Whatever, it doesn't matter whether it's a sweeper or, a king or a prime minister or anybody really. Any karma, we have to do karma. Yagnathat karmano
yantra lokoyam karma bandhana
tat
tadartha karma
karma
kaunteya
mukta
sanga samachara.
Work done as a sacrifice for Vishnu has to be performed. Otherwise, work causes bondage in this material world. Therefore, O son of Kunti, perform your prescribed duties for his satisfaction. In that way, you will always remain free from bondage. Basically, Lord Krishna is asking Arjun to perform his karma, his duties, like a sacrifice. When you're doing yagna, you sacrifice into the yagna. So if you take it as a yagna as well, your karma, even then, at least it's dedicated to the Almighty, and he'll get he will benefit and be free from the negative effects of that particular karma, because it's dedicated. So whether it's devotional service or you sacrifice it like a yagna. And there are people who do perform their work in such a manner. Text 9, that's another shlok that I would like you to think about. Yeah. And think of any examples as well in practice. Okay. Text 10. Saha yagna praja shrustva purovacha prajapati anena
prasavishtadharmam
Savishyadavan Esavo Sat Ishta Karma Duk.
In the beginning of the creation, the Lord of all creatures sent forth generations of men and demigods along with the sacrifices of Vishnu, and blessed them by saying, "Be thou happy by this yagna," basically the sacrifice, because its performance will bestow upon you everything desirable for living happily and achieving liberation. This is going back to the Vedic times when yagna in the different yuga, obviously, when yagna, practices of yagna was very, very vital, and that is what provided the living beings in that era with whatever they required, because by doing the yagnas they got whatever they wanted to achieve. However, it is said in this particular yuga, yagna does not give the fall that you, because it's not performed in that particular way. There are loads and loads of restrictions on yagnas. In order to do a yagna, I mean, in this day and age, many people call, perform the yagnas and they say, okay, this is how it's done, but it's not. The principal fundamentals of yagnas have to be followed. And if one does not follow them properly, then you are inviting negative karma from that. And the reason for that being, in the current Kali Yuga, the yagnas, the demands for the yagnas cannot be fulfilled by the people living in this age. There are many, many, many restrictions, many practices you have to follow before you can perform a yagna. And it's physically not viable for people to do so. However, just for all your information, for all of you, in equal to the fall of a yagna, to the fruits of a yagna, in the path of devotion, if you offer samagri, any samagri to the Almighty, is equivalent to a yagna. If you think about it practically, when you're performing a yagna, you're offering rice, sesame seeds, and lots of other bits into the fire, the Agni Kund. Whatever you offer into the Agni Kund, that is reflected and it reaches the Brahman, that is Lord Vishnu. He is the one, the receiver of all the yagnas. Any yagnas performed, everything goes to Lord Vishnu. Hence, the easy way out in this yuga is to prepare samagris, or if you can't prepare them, get them prepared and offer them to the Almighty, whether it's in temples or in your own home. It is equivalent to a yagna. And this is emphasized even for today's day, Akshay Tritiya. And the resonance is equal. So it's very, very powerful as per the Dharma Shastras and the current yuga and the current situation, the possibilities in this yuga. There are some yagnas that are performed, or loads of yagnas that are performed by different people. However, to engage in those, they have to follow the path laid out, the fundamental regulations laid out. I'm sure you're all aware that when people get married, you perform a yagna, and go around that yagna kund to take the oath. There are so many fundaments before that can be done. But in this age, how many people follow it? Then they say, oh, see, I did this yagna and, my marriage has not even lasted. If they blame it on that. But if you've not performed it correctly, first and foremost principle, you have to fast when you're doing a yagna. First and foremost. How many people fast before they do a yagna? Not many. And the youngsters of the current age, half of them, forget the youngsters, even the parents don't know, but half of them do not even follow the basic principle of showing respect. You wear your shoes in the lagna mandap, and there's a yagna going on there. How could you do that? Would you be allowed in the temple with your shoes? Certainly not. But you can do that in your wedding, and you want to enjoy all the material aspects, the pretend show, whatever, of the whole ceremony. However, you don't want to follow, you don't even want to follow the oaths that you take. It's all for show. You don't even understand the oath. Who is the witness to those oaths? They're so pious, those oaths. They're meant to be taken. In a particular avastha, you're supposed to fast. You're supposed to focus your whole soul. Only then can your marriage be, sat janma or whatever. Because if you don't follow the steps, how do you expect the universe to, reward you with the appropriate fal? Yeah. So wearing shoes, it's pure ignorance, really. Eating meat, serving meat during a wedding. Sorry, I'm saying this generally. Forgive me, but is one of the most insolvent sins. There's no escape from that, because you're inviting, when you're doing the yagna, there are the principles that you have to follow. I've told you the fundamentals, well, a couple of them, but you're inviting the Agni Dev, you're inviting all the other Devi Devtas, you're inviting your Pitrus during that ceremony, and yet when that ceremony is performed, what are you offering to, all the energies around, be in spirit or be in form, human form? So that goes completely against, the yagnas. However, coming back to the shlok, is talking about performing the yagna and bestowing you with everything desirable for living happily. Yes, yagnas, if performed correctly, they will give you the appropriate fruits for whatever you're asking for. I'm not for sure if all of you are aware, Sri Vallabhacharya Ji, his forefathers engaged in 100 som yagnas, and the fruit of that yagna was a partial incarnation, I won't say total, I would say partial. However, I would have the whole world against me, but not the whole world, but part of the society against me. But I would still state it as that because of the fundamentals of the Dharma Shastras. A partial incarnation of the Lord Almighty Himself. And that is a prime example. That's going back 527, I think 27 years ago. So just to state that yagnas can still be performed, but if done correctly. I have actually witnessed a Som Yagna myself that's being performed, and they do follow very, 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 very stringent procedures. So it's essential, basically the whole idea is, if you want to take that path, then you have to follow it appropriately. But that's harder than the simple path of devotion, whereby all the samagri that you offer to the Almighty is equivalent for. Yeah? Okay, right, I think we've done text 10 and we will, you've got two texts to think about, text 5 and text 9 in chapter 3, shlok 5, shlok 9. And we will, perform the last prayer for all those who are still undergoing this suffering in this COVID-19. Lots of people are being alleviated from this disease. However, those who are still undergoing that suffering, for today's day in particular, because it will multiply in folds and it will help the mankind in general. So we will say that shlok 3 times together. I hope you're aware of that one. Om Achyutai Namah Anantai Namah Govindai Namah. Yeah? So can we do that? Om Achyutai Namah Anantai Namah
Om
Shri
Govindaya
Namaha